embarrassing moment. And they said, "Do I have a Peter in here?" Well, this kid got laughing so hard he was on the floor. He was and I of course was like, "Duh, what is he laughing at?" Until they all started to repeat to me what I had said, which was really fun.
I need about
The tune was already written, but Frank Sessions, who was the first band director when the Waynedale School District became formed as Waynedale, he actually wrote the first verse to the alma mater at that time. And then sometime later, Terry Caldwell, who was the band director, I believe in the early 70s, wrote the second verse to the alma mater. So.
Okay, that's great. Do you have any memories, Gary? Actually, this question could be for both of you. What memories stick out the most from, I know you did show choirs to drama and to spring musicals. Any particular decade stick out for you?
Decade?
Or, or a year, rather.
Well, I think what's interesting for me is that one of the things that's different about being a music teacher is that you have students for more than 1 or 2 years. And so you watch the growth and development of kids for me, it was mostly freshmen through high school. But I do think you see them for a longer period of time, and it always amazed me that when I thought I had a really strong class of seniors and they were going to be gone, that the next year the sophomores and juniors kind of stepped up and met the challenge. And so it's hard to kind of pick out a particular group. I think I have a real fondness for 2 classes in the 80s when I was here, 1984 and 1987. And I think that was, 84 was a group of kids that I had every senior football player was in the choir or band that year. And sort of spoke really highly of that sort of attitude here at the school that it was all right to be in both athletics and in the music program. And that kids could learn from both of those things. So those were 2 really particularly good classes of students. You can answer.
Oh, mine have video too?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I was pointing that way, so I thought it was just. As far as a memorable, are you going to start with memorable years?
Yeah, we'll start with memorable years, fine, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Probably probably my years 4, 5, and 6. Yeah, probably years 4, 5, and 6 when it took that long to really get the program back to, the traditional powerhouse that it used to be. And people, or at least students, taking some pride in what they were doing. That goes a long way then, because you can put a lot of the polishing touches on it rather than having to make sure everybody keeps their shoes tied, all that silly stuff that really should be second nature. So I think in those years, there was a lot of things that I had set in place that really started working like clockwork, and it really started to become a lot more fun then. And I also had during those years, had some really good trumpet sections that did a real nice job. And when you have one section, of course, that plays real strong, while the other sections tend to follow suit a little bit. So those are some good years.
I guess this question could be for the both of you. Some years you have numbers, you don't have the numbers that you would hope to for the band. Do you remember a year you just had barely enough kids just to fill the spots for the different the different sections?
Well, for me, that's going to happen next year.
Is it coming next year?
Yeah, next year I'm going to have the lowest numbers I've had.
Is that right?
But every year, even when your numbers are high, there is, especially at a small school, there's always, there's always that struggle to make sure the instrumentation is as balanced as possible. And what you have to do is find students who are willing to switch over to a different instrument. And that says a lot of the students who do that. And I kind of, I make a point of that in middle school when they do make switches in middle school, that I have them stand up at the concert and recognize them, because they're putting in extra work and taking on a little bit, frustration at first on a different instrument for the betterment of the whole entire band. To reinforce the fact that it's a team effort as to what we do, and everybody's part is real important. Just every year seems like there's always a section or 2 that you're working on, and that's that's just how it is at a small school. You always got to try to make something.
Exactly.
Well, I think that 1980-81 was a real transition year in the program, and I think we were down to about 42 band members that year. And I think when I left in 91, we were back up to 80, around 80. But it mostly was in the 65 to 75 range most of the time that I was doing the high school band program. And the really significant piece of that is that it starts way back with the number of kids in 5th and 6th grade that you get interested in the program and the initial training and how that's all set up. And we were really fortunate here to have some good people at that time. Doug Bennett, who's now at Worcester High School, was a great beginning teacher. The very first week that we had hired him as a teacher, I went over to the John Arlay one morning, and he was on the floor with his legs crossed, talking to one of the kids and showing them something on their instrument. And I was convinced we had found a perfect teacher because he really was going to be able to relate to those younger students. And that feeder system is absolutely critical to what's happening. And nowadays, it's such a struggle for kids. There's so many options with Little League football and soccer and baseball and just all that stuff that happens. So kids have to make a commitment and follow through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and to build on that, it's even, in addition to what Gary said, probably the biggest obstacle in terms of activities and things they do is not necessarily, sports related or any of those other activities they do. It's really work related. I've got more and more students, and now that we're in a different, our digital divide in our society has gone, full sweep across, and everybody's got a cell phone now. Everybody has to have a car, and students are only doing maybe one activity a year. When at least when I was hired, the philosophy was encourage students to be involved in many things, and it's hurt some of the programs here at Waynedale.
Yeah, I know that the show choir, for example, for me when I started that in the early 1980s, I had 1 or 2 kids out of 16 to 20 that actually had a job at that time, and mostly it was a bag boy at the Mount Eaton carryout, or the grocery store, Hilltop Market, I think it was, or the Apple Creek. And by the time I finished here 12 years later, I had over 3/4 of the kids who had jobs. So trying to schedule performances and things, or even rehearsals, became a real nightmare because that number had increased dramatically, a number of kids that were working at that time. So I think you're exactly right, that's a huge issue.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is so different the way things were in the 70s and 60s. You didn't have the jobs, really.
Right.
You did 4 sports, or
Right.
You can't do that these days.
Well, and even that with the sports now, they've become year-round kind of activities, which is a big question mark still.
And there's probably more sports now than it was then there too. We got
Oh yeah,
soccer.
we had golf and soccer and all those
you guys
things
have
that
golf?
were. Yeah, there was. I don't think there was golf when I started here.
So those students who have done music here at Waynedale have much to be proud of all the adversity that you face and having decisions you have to make in a small school setting.
Absolutely, that's good. Gary, the Golden Airs, was that formed when you were the music director? Or was
My
that
predecessor, who was Lauren Weigel, Lauren was here for 5 years, and he started sort of an ensemble, a vocal ensemble, that was sort of a chamber music group, and they sang, but they didn't do any choreography or movement. And my collegiate experience at Heidelberg College, I was an accompanist for what was known as the Singing Collegians. And so I had that background of show choir, and decided that I wanted to sort of move that ensemble into more of a show choir sort of format, which we did relatively quickly. And it was another one of those things that had no supplemental contract initially. It was just a freebie to the district, but it became a really great PR tool, public relations, and I think in some of the busiest years, we did 25 to 35 show choir performances throughout the school year. And it was a great tool for the community organizations and groups to have that entertainment by those high school kids, and provide an incredible experience for the kids to actually be in that presentation mode And I don't care what kind of a job you're going to have in the future, whether it's a worker at the front line at McDonald's or a CEO of a company, those presentation skills are things that you learn in a music kind of setting. You don't learn that necessarily in another content area class. So it was a great opportunity for kids.
Do you have any embarrassing moments? I'll go over to Mr. Miro. I know he's been thinking about them. Any embarrassing moments you'd like to share during your 9 years here at Waynedale?
Yeah, it's my 9th year.
9th year?
Oh my gosh, is it 9 already?
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
One that sticks out is that because we just had this concert at our Pops concert, a spring concert for high school. One of the things is we give out these senior medallions to each student, and part of the honor of receiving a medallion is that, you know, the presenter puts it around your neck, that kind of thing. Yeah. And there is, and I don't know if it was like that then, but now it becomes a formal thing where girls tend to wear, if they went to prom, they wear their prom dresses and stuff. So there was a girl who was rather, you know, large up top, and I had to present it to her, and but she was also a short person, and the medallion was long. So when I put it on her head, the medallion fell right between her cleavage into her dress. So I had to kind of just move right along and cover it up and act like it didn't happen. And afterwards, I apologized, but she said, "Don't worry, it wasn't your fault." So that was an embarrassing moment.
And Gary, I know you wouldn't have any embarrassing moments.
I wouldn't have any embarrassing moments, but I think of a couple. When I first came here, I lived in a house trailer down in Fredericksburg, and frequently I would wake up, particularly on a Sunday morning after high school students had fun on a Saturday evening, and find my entire front lawn strewn with whatever. One time it was about 25 for sale signs that they had obviously picked up from everywhere. One time it was all kinds of antique sort of trash items, wheelbarrow, just all kinds of old wagons and stuff that they had obviously cleaned out somebody's barn or something and brought and delivered. And then probably the other thing was, especially with the show choir, all the performances, we often stopped at McDonald's or out to eat afterwards someplace, depending upon where the performance was. And I think it was about 1982 or 83, they began, every time that happened, I had a birthday. And so we had the happy birthday singing and all that in McDonald's that I think they thought they were going to embarrass me. But one year I think that I counted 20-some birthdays that I ended up having that year. So those were some embarrassing things, but fun, I think, for students.
That's good. Any comments about
The drill team, I inherited